Hey everybody, it's your boy, and today's video will be a little message to certain elements within the dissident right. I can't say this message to every single one of them because it is an umbrella term after all, but I will be talking about the ones in particular who seem, well, a little bit lost, shall we say. It's all well and good being contrarian, it's all well and good being against the current thing. You know, I mean, globo homo, the mainstream media, the mainstream right, the mainstream left, the cathedral, whatever you want to call it, it's good to be against these people because what they stand for is antithetical to what you and I believe in. However, the problem is that whereas I feel like I have a pretty good philosophy behind what I believe in, I tend to believe in the old-fashioned Western values of individualism, freedom, free enterprise, things like that, you know, libertarian, classical liberal philosophies. That's what I believe in, and also it comes from my culture being British. A lot of you seem divorced from this philosophical underpinning that guides you. Like, some of you may be religious, and that's what guides you, so you guys are fine, but for those of you who maybe the religion isn't enough, that there needs to be something else on top of that, you're really only defined by your enemies. And that has led to some issues. Because you're only defined by your enemies, which are of course globo homo, the far left, mainstream right, those kinds of people, you don't have anything else to back all that up. You can criticise these people and be contrarian against them for years and years and years, but you really have nothing to sell to people that you are convinced that you're right. Whereas these people, say what you want about the Marxists, at least they have a philosophy they believe in. Say what you want about neocons, at least they have something to pretend to believe in. In fact, they do have things they believe in as well. It depends on the person. But all these people have something to sell to the average person. They have something to sell to Western civilization, which has allowed them to propagate and to continue their dominance. Whereas I don't see a lot of you guys having that. You really are only defined by your opposition to these people. Beyond that, you're still searching, I feel, for what would be that underpinning of philosophy that you can then bring to the fore if you ever gain power. Because I hear a lot of talk about you guys wanting to gain power. You want to take control of the cathedral, you want to take control of society, which is, yeah, it's what we're all after, right? The left and the right, doesn't matter. We're all after control. That's the whole point of the culture war, isn't it? But what are you going to do once you get control? I see a lot of stuff about tactics, which I'm all for. I'm one of the people who's always talking about tactics and pragmatism and things like that. But I only talk about tactics and pragmatism and things like that because I have something in my head that I want to create. I have a vision for Britain, at least, not the world, just Britain, that I would like to see. And that is a return to what made us great to begin with, and that was the times in the 1800s and 1700s when we were high-flying on free market capitalism, we were laissez-faire, we had a strong culture based on the combined strengths of England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland. We all know what that is, the strong work ethic, that kind of thing, which then also lent itself very well to classical liberal philosophy. And if you're religious, Protestantism and certain elements of Catholicism, dare I say. Essentially, whatever inspired the likes of Lord Salisbury, whatever inspired the likes of Burke, Locke, all those people, all the great philosophers of the 1700s to 1800s, like Herbert Spencer as well, that's what I would like to return to, or at the very least to update. Because we can't just look back at in the past all the time and bring something back that clearly needs work on if it needs to continue to grow and improve. Obviously, I would want to change it, and I do have ideas of how to update it for the modern world. But at least I have that. At least other people like me have that. But what do you guys have? It seems to me that part of the reason why some of you in certain sections online that I am affiliated with, that I know, there's a reason why you guys tend to go for a philosopher a month, a philosopher a week even, a philosophy a month or a year. And that's because you don't know what you truly want for the world or for the country. You don't actually have a vision for once you get into power. Now, there are certain things you'd like to get rid of, for example, which is fair enough. Some of you, anyway, you know what you want to get rid of, but what do you want to put in its place? I think a lot of you are struggling to figure that out. And you claim to be pro-Western civilization. You want the West to thrive and survive and to prosper and to get out of this rut it's in. But for those of you who have whatever philosophy you have that month, seems to me that you don't really abide by what makes the West the West. I see something else. It's more collectivist. It's more Eastern. Because a lot of the philosophers you read are very Eastern influenced, even if they're Western, like Evola, and some of the other political thinkers as well, like Schmidt. They're very anti-Western. There's nothing about them that's particularly Western. And it's something that's alien to a lot of Western people. They don't believe in that stuff. They don't live their life like that, and yet you want to impose this lifestyle or whatever it might be that given week or month onto them. But then you'll change your mind and go to some different philosophy. You guys actually need to get together at some point in these little speaking events that you do, like Shieldings or NOMAS that I've been a part of. And yeah, it's all well and good talking about tactics, which is important, strategy is important, but you need that philosophy underneath, that vision for the world, that vision for the country, whatever it is, vision for Western civilization that will drive it. A plan, something that you can sell to the people, and if you can't sell it, then why should they give you the consent to rule if you've got nothing? And another problem is, because you guys are against the current thing, which is kind of a meme, and you don't even realise it's a meme, there's the current thing that you support, and then there's the current thing you're against. The two are very much competing memes, only you guys aren't aware of the meme, which is interesting to say the least. The problem with this contrarianism, being always against the current thing, is that even when the current thing is right, you're against it. And that has led to you guys falling for what I think is a lot of propaganda that you guys should well be aware of. Because you've been doing your reading up on propaganda, I imagine. You've been doing your reading up on tactics and strategy in regards to getting what you want in activism. Then how come we can't notice that within your midst, you've been infiltrated by Duganists and Putinists? Like, all you guys do, not all of you, because there are people on the dissident right, for example, Anakin, Cringe Walker, for example, who are against Russia and Putinism and Duganism in all its myriad forms. Those people haven't been affected by it. I haven't been affected by it because I know about all this stuff and how it works to a very beginner's level. A lot of you just parrot stuff that you don't even realise comes from Russian propagandists, from apparatchiks. So the stuff about NATO aggression, the things about the Russian army doing well, Russia strong, the myths about how strong its culture is, how strong its society is, which is a complete myth. It's in a complete demographic mess and is unlikely to recover from it anytime soon, kind of like China. This contrarianism is actually harming your movement. You're looking like a laughingstock to a lot of other people because you've got it so wrong on issues like that and maybe potentially on other issues in the future. Yes, the whole global homo current thing is usually wrong most of the time, but a broken clock is right twice a day, and it's always important to be on the right side of an issue as opposed to the wrong side of an issue. And if you feel like you have to be contrarian in order to defeat them, then you're going to actually cause more harm to yourself in the long term than good. Just because you and the mainstream may happen to fall on the same side of an issue doesn't mean you therefore have to be against it. You don't have to be. That doesn't even mean you support them. That just means that by chance, you guys have come to the same conclusions. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing any of us can do about it. There's times where I've fallen on a random subject on the same side as a communist. Like, for example, in linguistics, can animals learn languages? Can dolphins and chimpanzees communicate to humans beyond body language and commands? Well, it turns out I'm on the side of Noam Chomsky in that argument, that language is unique to humans. Should I therefore decide that Noam Chomsky is wrong and that the behaviouralists were right? No, just because I myself don't buy the Russian narrative and think that they're the victims in this war and like it was a preemptive strike, that therefore I support the globalists and the mainstream in the culture war. Not at all. In fact, I don't even agree with certain elements of the Ukrainian narrative either. It wasn't this perfectly fine country where there was no problem. The ruling oligarchy of Ukraine itself has massive corruption issues, as highlighted by the Joe Biden issues. I bring up this whole Putinist, Duganist infiltration because it's happened not just to you, but to certain elements of the left too. George Galloway, for example, is another person who is essentially compromised by Duganists, and there's a lot of other leftists too, like him. And it's happening to you, and I'm just trying to highlight that this has happened. You may not agree with me on the war and Russia and things like that. Who cares? We don't have to agree. But at the very least, please do some diligence. Do look into your midst and try and find anybody who parrots Duganist and Putinist talking points and see their history and see if they really stand for what you believe in, because I can guarantee you they don't. They're only using you to push their agenda. They don't care about the West. They don't like it. They don't want it to succeed. They want it to be weak. Do you really want to accidentally fall on the side of the anti-West? Because it's not just the enemies within that we always have to care about necessarily. We do have enemies without, like China and Russia, who would like to see us stay in this weak, unstable cultural situation that we're in. Personally, I'd like our culture to be strong so that we can therefore be strong outwards as well. But oh well, it is what it is. For those of you who are still struggling to come up with a philosophy to sell to the people, because unfortunately you do have to sell yourselves to the masses, otherwise they won't give you consent to rule. That doesn't mean you have to compromise with them or anything like that. You just have to make it look like, yeah, that's a world I want to live in. But you need to figure out what that is. Obviously, some of you will probably never find that answer. You will still be searching, and what can I say? Hopefully you do. But for those of you who have an idea on how to gain power, well, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do once you get there. You have to have this vision that drives it. You can't just live purely on power. Power alone can't just drive you to succeed. You need something else. Power is the goal, not the motivator necessarily. And if it is your motivator, then I have to question your motives. Because what are you truly in this for then, if all it is just to gain power? Are you just the typical blank slate politicians that we've had to deal with for the past several decades, like Tony Blair? Or do you stand for something? Are you not even necessarily an ideologue? Are you just somebody who has a belief system that you want to believe in and want followers around you to achieve that goal? If you are, then good. If you're not, you have to try and come up with something. Because once you guys have no more enemies, let's just say hypothetically that you've defeated all your enemies, well then what? What have you got? Most of you have nothing. Will you then try and find other enemies to define yourselves as, to find a new enemy, to find some energy to feed off of, to continue your movement? Or will you stop being at war and start to create, to build? Because there are some of you who do want to create and build. I see that. The basket weavers, for example, is a prime example of that. It's a small thing, it's an individual thing, but that creates something. But you need something bigger than that. I don't really see it from a lot of the big thinkers. I see a lot of stuff on power, a lot of stuff on elite theory, a lot of stuff on tactics and strategy, which is all well and good, but if there's no underlying philosophy underpinning that, a vision to drive for something, then, as I keep saying, you're not going to win. You're not going to make it. So that's just my message to you guys. You can take it or leave it. This isn't made out of malice. This is just me trying to offer some advice. So until next time, it's been your boy, guys. Like and share the video, and I'll see you all later.